All right, welcome ladies. So here is the finished piece, the Santa mitten, and hopefully we'll get through all of it today. All of you, I believe we're all ready, so we have our face base coated in with warm beige or some kind of a flesh color, and the hat with burgundy, and the top of the hat a really bright red. And then the face traced on so that we're all set to go with some details. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, switch to my overhead. Here we go. And keep your, if you've printed out your step-by-steps, keep them handy. That'll really help, you know, as we're painting today, to see where I am and what I'm doing. So if we are good to go, I'm going to start right in with my piece here. As far as your brushes, we've got, I'm using the Jelly Bean Dirty Dancers, which are, it's a long pointed round on one side and a blending brush on the other side. Okay, both the large and small. So small when you're in little areas, large when you're in big areas. If you don't have the double-ended brush, I just want you to pick out like a number 2 round and a number 4 round. Okay, and then you need either a dry brush blender, or you could use a filbert brush for blending. Any other kind of a dome-shaped brush would be good for blending. Couple sizes, little one, big one, just to get in different areas. But we'll make work whatever you have, okay? But I'll demonstrate how I use this. You're also going to need a fine liner. Now I've got 2 different sizes. I've got a 10-aught and a 5-aught. And I like the long length because I want the paint to be able to flow off. And I use the longer one, the 5-aught, the longer one, for extra long lines in the beard. Okay, otherwise the 10-aught is my normal go-to brush. So a couple of liners. All of the greenery is done with the wave angle. So if you've got a wave angle, even if you don't have the right size, we can make work whatever you have. If you only have a flat wave, we can make that work too. It just feels a little awkward, but it will work. You will get the same results. So I've got a 3/8 inch wave angle. Okay. Another thing you'll be using is a rake brush, like a 1/4 inch rake. Okay, and I like to use angle brushes to corner load, so a 1/2 inch angle brush. But if you're more comfortable with a flat, that's okay too. So you'd want like a, what, maybe number 12 flat. Somewhere close. And then when we go to do our stenciling later, you'll want a stencil brush, and I'm going to show you how to use the Dynasty Stencil Pro brush. It's a synthetic, and so I'll show you the features on that and how to make your stenciling successful. So that is about it as far as our brushes that we need, and I'll let you know what brush I'm using as we go along here. Okay, so to start with, if you have extender blending medium, you might as well just get it ready. I like to put it in a little cup because otherwise it runs all over my palette here. So any kind of a little cup or a little cap, you know, even a bottle cap or something, some little cup that you can put your extender in. And we have a variety of extender, I think, from people today, and that's okay. That's not a problem. And I'll tell you when to use it and when not to use it, okay? I'm going to zero way in because we're going to start right in on the face. Okay. Now, this guy has blue eyes, so we want some kind of a lighter blue to start with, and I used the aquamarine in the Traditions. Anything, any color blue that you like is going to be just fine. I could have used baby blue. I could have used more of a turquoisey blue. You know, you just have to like it. So it just needs to be the pale color. Get a little bit of that out. Now, the Traditions, I still have bottles left that I'm using, but they do come in the tubes now. And when you open the tube, instead of ripping that seal off, if you'll take a stylus and just poke through, otherwise too much comes out too fast. So instead of ripping the seal off, you get a great big glob that'll squeeze out all the time. I just poke through a little hole and then I get a more controlled amount coming out. So just a little tip if you end up getting any of the tubes. Okay, now I'm going to start with my small round brush. You have a choice. You can either fill the whole thing in with the blue, or, and I just need water to start with here, so I'm just going to use water. I wet my brush because it was dry, but I'm going to use the small round, so either a number 2 round or the small end. Of course, my paint has got a little thick on me, so I got to add a touch of water. Normally it's nice and creamy right from the bottle and I don't have to thin it, but if it feels thick, you want to thin it down. So I feel it's easier not doing the pupil right now. I prefer to do just a great big circle, and I'll come back later and get that pupil in there. So let's just start by filling in. I got a shine here. Let's see, I'm going to tip it. I think I can tip it a little, maybe that way. So you can see where I'm at. So nice big circle. Any color blue. And I'm going to switch my glasses because I need one pair for the computer and another one for seeing what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to fill in that great big iris. Then I want to do white in the corners of the eyes. So like titanium white, any kind of a bright white. Use the size brush that fits in the area. So if you have to switch to your liner brush to get in to the corners, that's okay. And I am going to just fill it in. So you might need to thin just a hair with some water. I'm going to fill in the corners. Titanium white, snow white. I love this Mitten piece. I've got a few different projects that I've done on this. Of course, in Minnesota, we always grew up with lots of mittens. So just fill in with your brighter white. Nice coverage. And I'm just going to touch up where I went into my blue of my eye. I'm going to just clean that up. Okay, now I like to actually do my highlights on my face before I do my shadows. To me, it's easier to pick out things that are going to pop forward. And so I like to start with that. So we want to get, if you'll take your skin color that you used, I used warm beige, and we're going to mix white into that. They used to have, and I don't know if they still, I think it was discontinued, white peach or highlight flesh. I used to use that, but you can just do, and I'm pretty sure it's equal parts, so let me try here. And see here, I am mixing Americana and Traditions together to make my colors, so it really doesn't matter if you intermix the two. They're both acrylics. Yeah, half and half. I just want a lighter, real pale skin color. If I jump right to white, it's too bright. Okay. Now I am going to be showing you my extender blending technique. I'll keep the angle of the camera bigger just to start with, and then I'm going to zoom in, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing on my palette to begin with. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to show you the extender blending technique, and what I do is I use the double-ended brush, and I'll use the big one in big areas, little one in little areas. Okay, so I'm going to actually start with the big one because I can always switch to the small if I need to. So when I do this, the first thing that I do is I'm going to moisten both ends of the brush and then wipe them off on a paper towel. So I got make sure that I get the excess off. So both ends of the brush go in extender. Then I'm going to use what's on the brush, and I'm going to put it on the nose here. I'm just going to do the nostrils first. Now, if it's really wet, if I tip this and it looks wet, and see, that looks too wet to me right now. So what I do is I take a little paper towel and I just gently set it down and get the excess off, okay? That means I did not wipe off my extender brush enough, or my dry brush blender. I didn't wipe it off enough. You might find as we're working today, depending on your environment, you may not have to moisten the area first. So we're going to try an easy area to fix, and then we'll go to town on the rest. So I moistened the nose, and then I'm going to load, get out of the shine of the light so you can see my color. I'm going to load my round brush. I'm patting in the color, okay? So it's not a big glob on it, but it's all inside, all the bristles. On the top of the nostril, I'm going to fill in a solid rounded shape. Don't be skimpy with the color. So take a look at what I've got here. I filled it in solid. Now I flip my brush over to the blender side, and I just barely catch that bottom edge to soften it and blend it. I'm not dragging it. I'm just barely touching that bottom edge to make it go away. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is just try just that much. So I'll repeat everything one more time. I've got my large Dirty Dancer. I dipped both ends into the extender blending medium, wipe it off really well on a paper towel, both sides. Then I'm going to load that long pointed round, or if you're using a number 4 round, fill in that top section of the nose, and then you're going to soften the bottom edge. So now I'm going to zoom in so that you can see the detail better. And I have time to play with that, but I just want to get that bottom edge. I mean, it really is, it's like I'm just erasing it. Okay, so before we go any further, I want to know if this has worked for everybody, or if you're having trouble, because sometimes I just need to re-explain it a different way in order to get. So if you had trouble getting this to blend, I want you to raise your hand. Did it work? Now, could I have just floated this on? Okay, Karen, you can unmute. Oh, you're there.
I just wanted to double check. Is it highlight flesh and white that you're using?
You can just use highlight flesh if you have that.
I do, but what about the accent in the corner there? The bright one. What's that?
The bright one in the this here?
Yes.
That's highlight flesh.
What's the other then?
Your face color is warm.
Oh, it's the face color. Okay, thank you.
Warm beige is the flesh color.
Okay.
My highlight is highlight flesh, but if you couldn't find that color, I mixed it.
Okay. I just got to go back in with the flesh color then. Thank you.
Okay. There, I gotcha. Okay. All right. Anyone else have a question? Okay, so I'm going to keep going on the nose. And let me get back. There we go. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other nostril. Now, I have been talking and I have not cleaned my brush, and I'm not going to clean my brush, the one that has the color in it. Now, it's probably gotten a little bit dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get just a little teeny tip of extender on that brush, because I don't want to keep washing it in water until I really have to. And then I'll use that to loosen up what's in the brush again, and it becomes fluid again. All right. So I leave that on my brush for the whole process. If I got it dirty and I really needed to wash it in water, I can, but then I reload it with extender and blot it again. So in between time, if it starts getting dry on my brush, I put a tiny touch of extender on the tip and then reload the brush with the same color. Okay, so on the other nostril, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm putting the color on nice and heavy. I want it very bold. Okay, flip the brush over, just barely catch that bottom edge and make it disappear. So I still want to be able to see my original base coat color on the bottom of the nostrils and then highlight on the top. Okay, now another spot on the nose, and as you need to, I will dip my blender in extender again, and then I go in a circle on my paper towel to clean it, because I keep picking up paint on that, you know, when I blend, but I want to get that off. So I dip it in extender, go in a circle on my paper towel to clean it. Okay, so on the rest of the nose, I want to go up the length of the nose. And I like to just do a little area at a time instead of wetting the whole face. If you were working in a hurry and you knew what you were doing, you could probably do that, but I like to just do one section at a time. Okay, so I did up the nose. Now, the tip of the nose, I kind of treat like a round ball. So before I go up the nose, I am going to make another curve, but it's a little higher than where I put my nostrils. Okay. Then I'll pull a line up the nose. But I need a little bit of a round ball at the bottom. So take a look at how I put my paint on before I blend it. So I filled in solid. Now I'm just going to catch that edge underneath, and I want to catch, I got to turn this so that I can reach. I want to catch the edge closer to the cheek, and just soft touch. Now if you wipe off too much, go back, put some more on, try it again. Now if it gets too wet, it's going to be difficult to blend and it's going to look blotchy. That means too much moisture. So stop, blot it with a paper towel, and try it again. And I can keep putting paint on top of this forever. You know, I don't have to wait for it to dry. I can go back and I can fix things right now if I needed to. Just soft touch. It's like I'm not even touching the surface when I'm blending. I'm almost like up in the air, because if I have a heavy hand, I'm going to be gouging the paint. If I stipple, I'll be gouging the paint and removing it. Just a gentle. Another thing you can try would be to soften with a mop brush. If you feel you're getting brush marks, gently dust over it with a mop brush. But I've gotten to where I can do the whole thing just with the blender brush. But that is another option if you need it to. So I've got up the length of the nose, and I definitely want to stop, you know, blend my starting and stopping points. And if you don't get enough paint, you can always come back after we do our shadows and touch it up one more time. Okay, the next section, okay, now see, I still have not cleaned my brush, but you know, it's getting dry on there. I just put a touch of extender on it, loosen it up on my palette, and just keep reloading it with the same color. A little fuzz on there. Okay, so I, you know, redip my blender brush and extender again, clean it, get a little tip of the extender and loosen up. I just keep reloading with that highlight color. And as it gets dry, I just put a touch of extender and it reloosens everything on the brush again. So I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so let's do another one. Okay, now for the cheeks, I'm going to moisten, but do it, you know, carefully. Make sure that you blot off this time. And you might as well go right up under the eye. Okay, but let's gently blot to make sure we don't get too much moisture. You'll find the different surfaces you work on will make a difference on how much extender you need to use. I find I need a little more on a canvas than I do on this type of a wood piece, because a canvas has all those little pores, and it, you know, your paint has to get down into them. So I moistened the whole cheek area right up under the eye. And then I'm going to keep using this same highlight color. And I want to make a nice solid circle in the middle of the cheek here. And I smooth that paint in the middle. Okay, so I know that looks like great big glob, right? And then just gently catch that outer edge. I don't want to touch in the middle because I'll remove the color. So just gently catch that outer edge all the way around and soften it. Now, when I first started painting, I did all this by floating color. Well, trying to float in a circle in the center of an object is really hard. This has made it so much easier. Now, if you don't have extender, you could have tried this with just water as well. You just have to work a little faster. Very, very, very light touch. Nice solid color in the middle of the cheek. But soften all the way around so you can't see a line. And I'm going to do that on both cheeks. If you're finding you're getting too much extender, you can try not moistening the surface first. Just put a dab of extender in your color. That's another way to do it. Now, I did not redip my blender brush, and there's still enough on there to kind of rub it into the surface and just get a little bit of a shine. I'm going to make another nice big highlight and just softly catch the edge. Try not to even touch the surface. Just gently, gently erase that hard edge around the outer edge. And in between time, because you are picking up color on your blender, you've got to stop and swirl it on your paper towel every so often. Otherwise, you're just going to make a mess and keep pulling the color out where you don't want it. Okay, I'm also going to do the wrinkles. Now, the wrinkles is an area that definitely I have to go back and touch up later because I know I will mess into it with my shading color a little bit, but you still want to get it started. So I still have extender because I went all the way up under the eye. So I'll start with the wrinkles under the eye. And I still have the same color. If you need to switch to your smaller brush, you sure could. But I'm going to try it with my big one here. I'm going to go like right in the middle. Yeah, I think I'm going to need my smaller blender, definitely. I'm going to go right in the middle of the wrinkles. Just create some lines there. Let me get my smaller blender brush here. Make sure that I dip that in extender and blot it off. Both ends. Okay. And just kind of gently just skim over that whole stripy area just to soften the color. It's just a start. It's not going to be perfect at this stage. I just want to get some of the lighter color in the middle of the wrinkles. And don't worry about hitting the wrinkles exactly. When we do our shadows, that's when we'll, worry more about getting rid of the graphite lines. Just kind of tuck it in here and there. Do that on both sides. Yeah, I'm going to switch to my smaller brush for up there, I think. So I'll go ahead and clean my other one out so that it's better. And I'll load the little one with the color. Just pull some streaks between the lines. Doesn't need to be real accurate. We'll go back and we'll have to put some better highlights in after our shadow. Just want to kind of get it started a little. So both eyes. And remember, they're wrinkles. So if they're a little patchy looking, it doesn't matter. It's a wrinkle. It doesn't have to be smooth. Okay, now above the eyes, it's going to be that area right between your iris and that line. That line is your eyelid crease. So I'm going to just moisten both of those. And the highlight is real solid in the middle above the eye, and then I soften the starting and stopping point. So if you'll stop and just take a look where I put that, I haven't blended yet, nice solid section, and then just catch the ends. Leave it nice and solid so it's real quick. Put a nice solid stripe of paint above the eye. And the only place you blend is just the starting and stopping point. You don't have to go through. And then I do like to put a little bit of this on the center of the lip also. So I'm going to moisten the lip a little bit. And I just want to put some lines. I don't want it smooth, so I'm going to drag some stripes in the middle of the lip there, especially on that top edge, because we want him to have wrinkly lips. So I'm not going to smooth this very much. I just barely kind of tap, mainly just that bottom edge. But let it be wrinkly looking. And we'll be able to come back and put some more black above the lip after too when we do our cleanup. So I don't even worry about that if I mess into it a little bit. And then that is it for the photo number 1 for our first steps. All right, so I've got just a drop of extender into my paint color here. So when I go to do the side of my face, I'm going to put this color on pretty thick. When I come down to the wrinkles, I'll go right on top of the graphite lines, just kind of drag in. So I'm not floating color, I'm applying color. Just drag in on those wrinkle lines. And it's not real accurate. I'm going to go just that far and I'm going to blend. So flip my brush over and I just want to catch that inside edge. Just soften it and just barely catch those lines. You don't have to do much blending on those. Those are wrinkles. Just barely catch them. So just that much first. So the side of the face, and then just pull some color right on top of those graphite lines. That'll start to camouflage them. And then just catch the inside edge and just barely soften where you hit the other color. And I'll continue down the side of the cheek and curve it, chisel it into the mustache a little bit. So it's like a great big C shape. And then soften that edge. And a lot of times when people have trouble blending, they've jumped too far in contrast. So if I start too dark, too quick, it's going to be harder to blend a dark shadow than a soft, kind of a medium shadow. I'll have a better success if I don't get too dark too fast. And we're going to do the same thing on both sides of the face. I'm not worried about the other wrinkles above and below the eyes yet. We're only concentrating on the outside of the face, and then we'll get things connected after. So don't moisten, and I got to turn it upside down to do the other side. Don't moisten, just add a little drop of extender in your paint color. Make sure in between that you're cleaning your blender brush with extender and rubbing it on your paper towel. Get the extra paint off. So when I do the other side, I start at the bottom where the cheek is, and I'm going to do that first. And then get the wrinkles. Higher up on the side of the face, and soften. I'll turn that back around. And then how about if we get the forehead also? Just go across the top of the forehead there. A lot of that's going to be covered up by fur anyway, but I want to get some shadow going and then just soften the bottom edge of it. Okay, so now I want to get the rest of the wrinkles, and if you need to switch to your smaller brush, you can. I'm going to go on the wrinkle lines and soften. So under the eye, and then the line above the eye. That eventually will get real dark up there, but this is just the first stage. And that can connect, you know, into the wrinkles outside of the face. So the wrinkle lines above and below. And sometimes I like to add even more lines in there eventually, but I just let it kind of happen, let it grow on you a little bit. It's hard to know how much to put on until you get all the elements in there. And then you'll be able to see if you want to make more wrinkles, more shadows. I do want to make sure that I get some darkness come right up into the corner of the eye, because that would be kind of dipping in there, so I don't want that to be too highlighted in the outer corner of the eyes. Okay, now, if you take a look here, I've overlapped into my highlight a little bit above the eye. Okay, now, all I have to do is take my little blending brush that just has the extender on it, and then I blotted it, and I can take that and I can wipe it off. So it's really easy to wipe off areas that you didn't want the color to get into. Just wipe it off because we're using the extender, that color is staying wet quite a while. So you can just wipe it out with your small blender. Make sure I pull some dark into that outer corner on both sides. And I think you can see what I mean, how we mess into our highlights and our wrinkles a little bit at this point, but we'll go back and we'll touch them up after. We just need a little bit of everything in there to start with. Okay, then I want on the outside edge of the left nostril, I want color there, but instead of just keeping it that curve, I want to pull some down. It's almost more like a triangle. Pull some down to the mustache. Then I'll soften. So take a look before I blend this. It's easier to see. I went next to the nostril, but then I pulled some down into the mustache. And then I'll soften. And if I get into the nose, I just take that clean blender brush and push back that excess shadow color in there. So we're going to do the same thing on both nostrils. Next to the nostril, and then pull. It's like we're creating more of a triangle, and then soften. So just to repeat, so far we did the outside edge of the face, and in the wrinkles we did the outside edge of the cheek and a little bit on the bottom. We did above the eye, and we did next to the nostrils, creating a little more of a triangle shadow by the mustache. Then we're going to be connecting the shadow from the eyes to down the nose, and that's, I want to be able to do before the rest of this dries, because I need to attach the shadows. Now the easiest side is going to be the one on the right, because that I can follow the line of the nose, okay, and fill that in nice and solid, big stripe, and I'm going to connect that shadow way up. So take a look at how dramatic I've made this, and I brought it right down on top of the nostril. Okay, I've got to soften it next to the cheek there, and I need to soften this hard line at the very top, but not down the bridge of the nose. That can stay a little bit sharper line. because we've got a 3/4 view. I want to make sure that this shadow that I just put on is touching a little bit into the shadow that we did next to the nostril. So make sure you got it wide enough that they touch. But I want it to be a little bit more rounded in the cheek area there. So I want to make sure that when I blend, I don't have like a square right there. I want it to be more rounded. And people are usually afraid to put enough paint in that area, and if you don't, it's going to look blotchy. It needs to be a solid color right next to the nose. Connects way up into the shadow above the eye, and then it connects to the shadow on the nostril. I soften the top, and I soften by the cheek. And it's the other side that just takes a little bit more work, but boy, this method has made it a lot easier than trying to flip-flop your brush to float the color in the middle of an area. If it's not blending right, put a tiny drop of extender into your color. You want that to, you know, keep the paint from drying too fast so you have time to blend. Okay, and then I'll have you get to a stopping point so that I can show you the other side, but I don't want to interrupt you if you're in the middle of a critical blending spot. So finish blending down the nose on the right side and then wait for me for the other side. Okay, so see if you can get to a stopping point and then look up at the screen. Okay, are you guys ready? Okay, let's take a look at my screen. Okay, I've got just a little touch of extender in my color again. And I want to make sure that my blender brush, see how dirty that was from blending? So I dip it in extender and I rub it on my paper towel to get that extra color off there. Another thing that you want to be aware of, every once in a while I end up using a napkin. Well, a napkin is not going to absorb the extender. You know, you might be able to use it for your other paint, but you've got to have an absorbent paper towel to do this because you can't get all the extender off on a regular napkin or some of the cheaper paper towels. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want this shadow above the eye to come straight down until I run into my nostril. I did not aim for the outside of the nostril. I went straight down. Okay, so I want that nice big curve, and then I pull color into the wrinkle, and I'm going to kind of round that out, fill this in right here. So look at this great big area I've got filled in solid so far. This is all solid right there, came straight down. Then I fill in, kind of round it by the cheek. That's a huge area that you have to fill in solid. Now I'm going to soften by the cheek, and I have to soften this whole edge coming down the bridge of the nose there. by coming straight down to the top of the nostril, that creates the shape of the nose on the bottom here. I got to wipe out some that I got into the highlight there. Just pull that out a little bit. If you don't make it wide enough at the top, he's going to look like he's got a great big fat nose at the top, and that's really the skinniest part of your nose up there, that right between the eyes. So you got to pull that color in a little further than you think. And then when you look, you've got to look at your two nostrils. Do they look like they're still the same size, or did one get smaller? Because now's the time to adjust them. And maybe it's just you need to put your extender back in, or I mean your highlight, or maybe you just need to take your clean brush and just wipe out some of your shadow from on top of the nostril. I still have to put a shadow next to the tip of the nose on the right that goes through the nostril, but I got to make sure the nostrils are the same size first. It's easier to correct them now. Okay, so if you think that they're okay, I just want a thin line next to the tip of the nose that goes through that one nostril and soften it, because that would be casting a little bit of a shadow on that other nostril. And then the only other thing is sometimes I'll put some on the bottom tip of the nose, and sometimes I don't. I know I'm going to have highlight or blush down there anyway, so a lot of times I just cover it up. So it's really not even necessary to really put this on that bottom tip. But sometimes I do it just because. I'm not going to put it on the other nostril. I'm going to leave the other nostril a little lighter. I think what I would like to have you do is go ahead and blow dry this.